All right, so welcome to YOUmedia's podcast. Today we have for our guests Poetry for the People. We have Jo Martinez, Vanny Veras, and Samantha here with us to speak with us about poetry and how they came into poetry. I'm gonna go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Rachel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chantel. I'm the specialist at Lemon City. Vianney.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vianney, and I'm the specialist at. I was about to say Lemon City. I'm getting all confused. I know we like. I'm the specialist at South Day Regional Library.
Our turn?
Sure. You can start. Yeah.
So I'm Jo Martinez II. Born in Miami, now based in a part of Miami called. I was born in Milwaukee, now based in a part of Miami called Liberty City. And so I'm a poet, organizer, and educator. That's part of Voices Poetry for the People. Because I actually will delve more into it, but I got into organizing because of poetry. And I believe in the power of poetry and its ability to help amplify the voices of people, because I don't think there are voiceless people. There's just people that aren't heard. I'll pass it to Samantha.
So, I'm Samantha, born in Spain, raised in Miami. I'm a writer, artist, and beekeeper, and I'm also part of Poetry for the People.
My name is Vanny. I also go by V. I was born in Miami. I'm of Dominican descent on both sides, my mom and my dad. I am a poet with Poetry for the People, and I also organize with Dream Defenders and FemPower.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm gonna go right into it. How is everybody doing so far with the quarantine? And as poets who are, in the quarantine, has this started anything new for you creatively? Are you writing anything new or focusing on other things? Let us know how you're doing.
Go ahead, Jo. All right. Well, with our collective Poetry for the People, we currently have a project going on where we are writing poetry for some of the essential workers, as well as patients in the hospital, just as a way to give them some type of comfort in this moment of, uncertainty and just collective anxiousness that we're all going through. Our collective really keeps our creative juices going, so that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually also organizing open mics on Instagram every third of the month, every third Thursday of the month, I think. Yeah. And yeah, so that's keeping us busy. And also there's a series that Aja Monet has going on, which is called Homemade, which we've also been interviewing poets for our blog from that particular series. And so that's been a big task that we've been taking on right now.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're poets, and so on top of the poetry that we do, we all dive into different creative spaces as well as organizing. We live in Miami, so there's always social injustices that need to be addressed. So if anything, quarantine has kept us busier than if we were to not be in quarantine, because there's just a hyper focus on the inequalities that exist.
All right. Yeah, it is really intense time. Definitely time to get things done. So before we do jump into more questions, we're gonna ask if you guys would like to perform one of your original poems.
Yes. That's you. So before I get into that, I forgot to mention one project. One of our dearly beloved poets, King Musa, was just released after being in prison for 13 years. And so we're also working on something for him. And he's actually a poet in our collective as well. And he's been a part since he was incarcerated, and now, thankfully he's free and has a lot more ability to create the way that he prefers. And that being said, I'm gonna do a piece called Path. Empty rooms become flooded with sounds and signs. Listen to the foreign language of the drums. Tambores. Me llama. Especialmente cuando estoy cerca a Yamaya. In hopes of a response, let it be known I'm listening. Los sonidos caress my ears as ancient chants bring my spirit to tears. Hair out, head back, hands up, till they fall down, recreate sound. Ancestors speak to elders that listen, to youth who learn to teach. This is our education. It's not in the system. Get lost in the sound, not in the system. Free your mind. Yes, free your mind. Break mental chains, they stop change. Break mental chains, they stop change. You'll be amazed at what you found to find. You thought you were lost, only to realize that you're blind. But when you see with sound, what's lost becomes found. Answers lie in a mix of contemplation and jazz. Our liberation lies in a mix of poetry and drums. So follow the rhythm. Yes, follow the rhythm. See, follow the rhythm. We follow the rhythm. Yes, follow the rhythm. See, follow the rhythm. We follow the rhythm of our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
No problem.
That's beautiful. Okay. So is anybody else jumping in, or we can move forward with the questions?
I could also read one. This one is short. It's actually for our Conrad Musa that Jo mentioned, that was recently liberated from prison, and this is a poem that I wrote for him. Okay. So it's called Letter to Musa. We discussed your freedom just last week. I hope it tastes delicious on your skin and feeds you within, despite these times we now find ourselves in. Difficulty processing, sequestered to the mundane, cocooned in numbness. I'm sure you're not complaining. God, the potential that you must feel, frolicking, flirting with the infinite possibilities of being. We needed this joy in the midst of our spiral, warmth amidst the madness, the anxiety, the panic. I pray for when you can rest your eyes and not relive those yesterdays, unplagued by unwanted replays, that these times be a balm to your wounds, albeit a razor blade to me. Yeah, so short, like I said.
Yes, poet.
That was great, Vanny.
Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share? You okay?
There's no snaps.
There's no pressure.
I can share something. I was not prepared to. Either way,
We would love it if you feel comfortable.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. I guess I'll also do my Musa piece. This is a poem about time, about home, about now, tomorrow, and the day after that. It's about fresh air, knowing, feeling, discerning. A poem I wish I didn't have to write. A poem I'm glad I am writing. A poem that should not exist. A poem choosing to be in spite of, because of, and for. I know someone who lives in this poem, who carries it well, otherwise it wouldn't be. I know someone who makes this poem swell, brings it in at night, hangs it up to dry after a good wash, takes care of the hope within it, waters it often, pays close attention to its seeds, sprouts, saplings, cocoons. It's a growing poem. This poem is an opening statement. Essay, thesis, case study, book, journal, encyclopedia, dissertation, affirmation, affirmation, affirmation. This poem talks about freedom and then gets free. This poem shares words constantly and knows how to receive. This poem plays. This poem, it journeys. It comes back as a well thought out prognosis of what ails us. This poem rivals the Bible. It speaks of a faith, speaks of a walk we glorify but seldom embody. This poem channels, downloads, runs on love, reboots your old software for what's possible, brings it home, home, home. The M in home always reminded me of a hug, like a home cooked meal does, like a home cooked meal does a body good, body of a poem, mind of Musa, sound soul. This poem is still being written.
Beautiful.
This wasn't ready either. Look at that.
No.
Not at all. I wasn't ready.
It was an embrace.
Yes, beautiful. All three poems.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So when did you start getting interested in poetry? Anyone can answer.
I feel like Jo has the best answer. But
So I started, my very first poem was in grade school, and it was a love poem, and it was a puppy love poem for this girl that I had a really big crush on. These poems are no longer in existence.
You didn't save them?
So he says.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, my first ever poem was around this idea of love. Obviously now I would identify more as puppy love. But I started taking poetry seriously when I got to university and started realizing that individuals are more receptive to critique if it's through art.
Yeah,
I personally, oh, sorry, Anna.
Go ahead, Vanny.
I personally started songwriting first when I was younger. You know, I wanted to be a superstar. So I would write, and instead of going along with it being music, I was like, okay, you know, I can't really play all these instruments, so let me just make it poetry. And just as I got older, you know, with so much reading, I just continued writing, and it's just been like, I don't know, it's been just a part of me for so long.
Yeah, I think I have a similar story to Vanny in that it definitely started off as something that's like just my god sister and I would do for fun, and it definitely became a source of healing for me. And then yeah, once I hit college, then that's when it was like, oh, spoken word, oh, like I can get on stage, and this feels very, very different. And you know, from just like me writing in my journal to like sharing it with folks and having an impact in that way. I think that's when I really understood the power of words.
Amazing. Rachel, you want to jump in with a question?
Yeah. So you mentioned, Anna, that it felt really different to you when you actually started to jump on a stage and really share your poetry than it does when you're just writing in your journal. And I guess I even feel I'm so shy that like when I write in my journal, I'm like, wow, I'm shocked, you know, because what comes out is different. And then there has been times when I have shared, and that is different too. And my question is, who is the first person that you actually did share your writing with, and how did it feel the first time? Do you remember, if you remember at all?
Yeah, it was my god sister, and it felt safe. I felt supported. Yeah, there was definitely, we definitely had, both of us had households that we both needed to sort of escape from, and that was definitely something that we went to the writing. And so it definitely, being with her all the time, you know, we were never separated for very long, and so writing was just like a piece of that, and so it was the right place for me.
Yeah, I think so. For me, when I started taking poetry more seriously is when I actually shared it with folks. And so the first person specifically that I shared it with was someone that I went to university with. Her name is Larry. And oddly enough, she's in South Dakota, and she's a poet and organizer as well, and an educator. And so we've been on very similar paths and used poetry with the same intent. And I just felt comfortable sharing it with her. And she's the one that kind of pushed me to start sharing it with individuals at the university, understanding that what I wrote about was a shared experience. Like, it was my experience, but it was also something that others, like Black students of color, at the university were experiencing, and that individuals needed to hear it. And that's when I did realize that people would listen to a poem about a social injustice in a way that they wouldn't just sit down and hear you tell it to their face. And that pushed me to really dive deep into poetry, because I realized that that was how I was going to be able to critique and then also get individuals to start addressing the issues that I think exist all throughout the U.S., especially in universities.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I have a question. So, you know, when you write poetry, you know, in the past, when I've written poetry, I wouldn't always share the poems that have dealt with like trauma, with family members or childhood, or it could be even a fallout with like a best friend or a lover. Do you ever feel guilty for reciting your poetry, like let's say at an open mic, when it has to deal with someone else, or is it more like a release?
I personally haven't done that many open mics. I've honestly publicly read my poetry not that many times, but I will say that when I've had to read aloud, whether it be a class or, you know, a group of people, about any type of trauma or pain that I've ever felt, I've never really felt guilty, because it's, you know, it's me expressing the feelings that evoked in me. You know, even if, let's say, someone comes out seeming like the quote unquote bad guy, you know, that's my story that I'm telling, you know.
Right.
So I personally have not really felt any guilt about it like that.
That's good to know. Chantel, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious to know, do you switch up your work based on your audience at all, or is this is what we get, this substance and meat every time?
So this is a question we definitely all sat with and went back and forth. I don't, personally, I don't cater my poetry to the audience. It's more so the intention that I want the audience to leave with. So for me, when I'm thinking about the poems that I want to do, it's what would I like those that are listening to leave with? And those are the poems that I'll share. And so it may change, but the audience never influences what I share, because I want to be as intentional as possible with my words.
Amazing.
I will say that the type of audience can sometimes influence what exactly what words I use, how violent my descriptions will be. Like, for example, now I read a poem that's more, passive compared to some of the poetry that I write, because just, depending on like the type of audience, maybe you would want to like censor yourself a little bit. But I personally prefer not to censor myself. I like Joe said, I really like to impact people with whatever message it is that I'm trying to give out, and these stories that we speak on, they're stories that hurt. They can be violent, they can be heartbreaking, and these are people's realities. So that's really what we try to highlight.
Yeah. The power in being a poet is that you are absolutely a steward of truth telling. And I think we, as a collective, we definitely adhere to that as much as possible. Whether we might show up somewhere and like the mood is like light and flirty and whatever, maybe you're like, oh, I kind of feel like doing this other, like, it might be something like that. But as far as like what's my intent, I think that's first and foremost always. And yeah, just I feel like it's hard to sometimes be courageous with your words, but I think it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, Rachel, do you have a question?
I was gonna say, I noticed that, so first, one of my other questions is, you all mentioned that you are organizers, and for those that are maybe new to that term, can you kind of define what that term is? And and maybe then after, I would love to hear like, what is something that, how does organizing and poetry go together?
Okay. I think organizing is more or less what folks might think of when they think of an activist. But I feel like the word activist is has become a caricature of what organizing really is. Like it takes a lot of effort to bring people out into the streets and march and have everybody have signs and so on and so forth. There's a lot of thought and planning that goes into that, and that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to organizing. Organizing is really about, let's say you're a kid in school and it's like, man, like they changed school colors. We really we really identified with the school colors. My sister went here, my mom went here. Let's get together and like let's have a petition to let the administration know like we want the old school colors back. It could be as simple as that, and it could be as big as like, a big election or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and kind of building off of that, like the term organizer is very layered because like our society has a lot of issues that need to be addressed, and because there are so many issues, you have to be adaptable. You have to be informed by the people, which means you have to have like real relationships. And you have to be accountable to individuals. And yeah, just this again, like Anna was sharing, like activist has become somewhat of a caricature. And so like this idea of organizer, it's not just something you throw around and you just say, right? Like there's a heaviness, right? We're poets, right? So there's a heaviness with the words that needs to be taken into consideration. Like I organized with Dream Defenders, but it took me 2 years living in Miami to be comfortable with calling myself an organizer, right? Because after 2 years, I'm held accountable to a community. There are specific issues that I want to address and ways that I address them. And I'm also willing to be called out, which is that accountability aspect, which I think is like very important. And how it ties into poetry, like I said, I actually got into organizing because poetry. And Anna mentioned like the truth telling power of poetry. like if you use poetry as it's intended, right? Like we don't just write poetry for the sake of writing poetry. No, like poetry is very intentional in the way that we use it. We specifically use it to address social injustices and issues. And so when talking about the intersection of poetry and organizing, we reflect on June Jordan, like our title, Voices, Poetry for the People. That term, Poetry for the People, is based off of June Jordan, who was an organizer and a poet, and taught individuals the intersection of movement, space, and art. No movement happens without art. It doesn't exist. Artists are absolutely essential to any movement, and therefore we as poets and we as organizers have an added layer of accountability to make sure that our poems are informed by, reflect, and help to uplift and amplify our community and the issues.
That's amazing. So what advice would you give to a teen who's interested in becoming, that sees you as a positive example to follow in you all's footsteps and become an organizer, a poet? What are the first steps?
Personally, what I would say, going back to what Jo mentioned about accountability, is to really listen to your community, really pay attention to what ails your community. You know, it's goes beyond you. It goes beyond your ego. You know, it's really about you being a voice for your community. Well, not a voice, but a vehicle for the voice. You know, because your community has a voice. The marginalized have a voice, and what we try to do is, you know, project that voice, and at the same time be accountable to that community. So what I would really say would be, you know, just to really listen to your community. Just, you know, be quiet and listen. People don't realize how hard it can be sometimes to truly just, you know, just listen to marginalized people and you know, their complaints and you know, their needs. But it really takes you know, a lot of character and strength to be able to do that. So that's definitely an advice that I would give.
Yeah, and as youth, I think it's important to listen to our elders. So just being in space with them, just, you know, hang out with your grandma, hang out with, you know, the ladies at the church, you know, after mass, after service. We go to your community center, hang out there. I think just the simple showing up is where it starts and where the relationships start to form, and I think everything else comes from there, for sure.
And who are some poets that inspired you that we can recommend to the teens to check out their work? If anyone.
Man, yeah, so many. So someone that's kind of dear to me, and Tazaki Shange is an amazing individual. And Anna Shirt says Maroon Poetry Festival. We hosted a poetry festival in Liberty City. And Tazaki was there, and unfortunately, shortly after, rest in power, she passed away. She's an amazing individual, and she did something called choreo poetry. So there, like, poetry can be meshed with other creative art making forms, and she was a great example of that. P.D. Thomas from New York, you know, he's Boricua. I'm Boricua as well. Miguel Piñero, and also Pedro Albizu Campos. Like, there's a rich history of organizers that were also poets. And I know this because I took like literature classes, and literally like everyone in Latin America, like president, poet. Like, I was like, what? Like, why are all these presidents also poets? And, you know, China has this history as well. Like, a lot of the leaders are poets as well. So that's for me.
Me personally, I actually have a lot of songwriters that I specifically took inspiration from. In Spanish specifically, Anthony Santos, he's a bachatero. Also, Juan Luis Guerra, they just have just beautiful, beautiful flowery imagery, like the way that they describe things. They just use a lot of figurative language, honestly, through music. It's a really clever way of getting more in tune with that. I really enjoy, this is funny, but Bruce Springsteen, he's a rocker, but very, very gifted songwriter. Just the vivid imagery that musicians really put into their craft, musicians that songwrite as well. It's just extremely impressive. Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, I really love as well. They're really, really good songwriters. And they also use their songwriting to highlight issues of marginalized communities. So I definitely take inspiration from that as well. And even though many might not see it that way, but Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, these orators, they really put a lot of meat into their speeches. If you read I Have a Dream, you see a lot of figurative language, you see a lot of hyperbole, you see a lot of alliteration. They cleverly used language to be able to convey their messages. So definitely a lot of speeches that you hear are definitely examples of poetry.
That's a great point.
Yeah, orators for sure. And Tazaki, Sonia, Juan Luis Guerra as well. Yeah, all that.
Thank you.
I have a kind of going off that question. This is kind of a fun, quick question, but there's this thing of ghostwriting where in more of the commercial industry, particularly, people will write lyrics or write songs or produce for other artists. So I want to ask you, if you just somehow got in a room and you were asked to you could ghostwrite for one person, either a politician or a big artist, or even just the social media account of an influencer, and you would secretly be ghostwriting for them for a week, who would it be?
An influencer.
I would maybe ghostwrite for Beyonce.
Yes.
I would definitely, put my agenda all over her posts.
Yeah.
I would highlight a lot of issues that we're going through and use her platform to be able to, put the spotlight on it.
That's one thing. I'm like, how can I be strategic about this? Beyonce
Right?
for sure is a great vehicle for a lot of the things. I mean, you could just see her Super Bowl performance, how much it was talked about. But amongst the organizing community, it was that wasn't enough. That was such, Mika D's that was just pieces.
Yeah, there's a lot of critique on that performance.
Yeah. So,
Good choice.
I would use J. Cole. I would ghostwrite for J. Cole. Fun fact, I actually made a music video with them, so I had the opportunity to meet someone that had a lot of influence and helped me get through some hard times. So yeah, J. Cole for sure. Jermaine.
That's so cool, Joe. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a fun video.
What video is that? Can we see you in it?
Yeah, the teens, they're totally gonna be like, what video?
Joe's actually a drummer. He has not mentioned. And it's I don't remember. Boz? No. Yeah. Okay. But I don't remember the song. The name of the song though.
It's a song with Boz, and J. Cole is featured in it. I'll let you know the name right now. And I stand out because I'm the only non-Haitian in that music video.
Boz is Haitian?
No, I'm the only non-Haitian. Everyone else in the music video is Haitian. And the music video is called Tribe.
Yeah.
I definitely need to watch that YouTube video.
Same.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Have any of you published a book of poetry, or do you want to? We had a special guest last week. Her name is Reina Noriega. She published a book
We
of
know
poetry.
Reina.
You know Reina? Yeah, I actually been reading her book. She read some of the poems on our last podcast. So we're curious to know.
That's dope. We don't, I personally haven't. Jo has had some poetry published, I believe, but we did do 2 different zines through Poetry for the People. One that was specifically to go with the Maroon Poetry Fest. And then, so that was all focused on Maroon colonies, which are basically colonies of escaped slaves that came down to Florida and formed colonies and survived that way after slavery. And then, so we honored them through this festival and through this zine. And then the next one was for the Evicted show. And you all can speak a little bit more about that. Yep, that one.
I don't know.
So it's called The Final Notice. And we did a collective critique, right, where this is where organizing and poetry come together. We worked with an organization called FAM, Family Action Network Movement, based in Little Haiti. We started going to their meetings. It's an organization that I still organize with because I was so moved by the anti-gentrification work that they do. And how much they help to amplify the voice of the ICN community here in Miami, because it's so important. So we did a self-published work, and like literally all the art, all the music, all the poetry is written and done by us. This took a long time. It's a long process. So yeah, as a collective, we've been self-publishing, and I'm also published in an international anthology of poetry that's around anti-capitalism. So that's a thing as well.
I personally have published articles, like in my school newspaper. I've done like some political, social commentary pieces. Also, for a newspaper, like a local Dominican American newspaper, I've also published. So it was like poetry. You can call it poetry, what I wrote for them. But I haven't actually published, in like a book or like an issue. But that's definitely a goal of mine, or like some literary website or something. You're on mute.
We're manifesting that it happens.
Definitely, it's going to happen. We
There's
will all be published in books.
And as a videographer, there's also essay videos that, that can also be a thing too, especially with social media, how, videos and photos come. So I guess I was going to jump into a few individual questions because, we have 3 really interesting guests with a lot of different experiences they bring to the table. My first question is going to be for Vanny, because you just mentioned it. You are working on your bachelor's in film and TV production at Miami-Dade College. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this is kind of a question for the teens, because a lot of our teens kind of may be interested in a similar path, because we do teach media and we have a lot of teens that are interested in that. How has that been helpful to you for preparing for this career? Have you been on any sets, and do you have any tips for navigating that major at Miami-Dade?
I haven't been in any sets, but I do enjoy, the different opportunities that I've had through the program to just expose myself to different types of media. Because what I originally in my head wanted to do was just, be a journalist. That was my main idea. But then through the program, I was like, you know what? Why not screenwrite? Why not direct? Why not edit? So I've been like taking editing classes. I've taken a screenwriting course. I've taken history on cinematic film and independent film. And it's just been, you know, just like me discovering the different interests that I have. And, you know, through the Miami-Dade program, honestly, you know, they give you the tools and resources to be able to do that. So I definitely, you know, I would recommend anyone to go to Miami-Dade. You know, community college, people think in their head, oh, you know, private college, but community college is way more affordable. You know, and Miami-Dade specifically is one of the biggest in the country, so they have a lot of networking opportunities. So definitely recommend it to anyone considering that career.
Definitely. Some of our staff have went to Miami-Dade or are taking classes at Miami-Dade. So that's great.
Thank you. All right, and in a similar vein, I have kind of a similar type of career media arts oriented question for Anna. So you have a background for a long time as a visual merchandiser. This is a career that I've known at least 2 people, I believed, that are very artistic that have done that. And do you recommend, what does a visual merchandiser do first? Mm-hmm. What are some of the skills that can prepare you for this career, and would you recommend that for young people that are really artistic and visually minded?
Sure. So basically what I did in my role was I was in charge of the creative layering of a store. So anything that has to do with the marketing, with the mannequins, the way things are laid out on the table, folded, the way things are put up on the wall, and all of that, the entire design aspect, I would get on the computer and design and put in the new collections that were coming in, and take into consideration like what's old, what's new, what do we have a lot of, what do we have very little of. So it's a lot of strategic and thinking, and it's a lot of puzzle maneuvering, and as well as a lot of numbers and thinking about what's best for the customer, and like what's the customer going to like. And so it's a lot of thinking about it from someone else's perspective. It's about thinking about the very small details, color story, imagery, messaging, all of that. And so would I recommend it? Maybe not so much. I feel like I would say the aspects of it that I really loved were the creative part of it, but the other part of it that you have to think about is that you're also part of a store team. So you're working retail and everything that comes with that. You're missing holidays with your family and all of that. So that can be tough for some people. I think, you know, that ran its course for me. I did in my 20s and it was great. You know, I had a lot of fun, got to travel a lot, got to work with people. I worked for a major company, and I'm not going to say the name, but they might have a little fashion show that they do every year around the holiday time. So I got to work with a lot of the artists that work on that. Like I said, I got to travel a lot. I got to lead teams and got to find my voice through that way. Got to, you know, really help grow people's careers. And so that was really, really fun. But I feel like, yeah, the retail aspect of it, for me, it just, you know, kind of ran its course. So that's something to think about. But I think those skills are very applicable to any design career, because of you're thinking about composition, something that you think about even when you're drawing a picture, when you're taking a photograph, when you're on a set doing set design. All of those things come into play. And so I think it was really, really great experience, and I wouldn't change it.
I have a question for the teens, just to piggyback off that. Is there any program that you would recommend where if a teen was interested in set design or interior design, something where they can, you know, swap some colors out, you know, see what this looks like?
You know, I feel like what's funny about what's going on now with the internet, I feel like a lot of people that I know personally, a lot of folks are putting on their own, like whether it's like their own creative videos, their own photo shoots. I think if you have other friends who are really interested in that kind of thing, I think if collaborating with them, I think is, you know, pretty accessible to you now with the quality of pictures that you can take just on your phone. And then from the amount of information that's out there for you on, you know, just on the internet. And not just that, but just exposing yourself to different things, different types of art, different types of, you know, fashion or design. It might not apply to what you're doing directly, but indirectly, I think that there's something to grab from everywhere. There are, I know Johnson & Wales has a great program for visual merchandising specifically. The Art Institute is also a great place if that's the route that you want to go. But also, if you want to just jump in and just like dip your toe in and try doing a floor set with, you know, a store and just like see what it's like, that's also, you can just jump right in. It's one of those careers where you can work your way up. So.
Awesome.
Nice.
My last question is for Jo. You were a doula in training. So what is that? What's a doula? And how did you come to choose that path for yourself?
So a doula, by definition, is an individual that provides what I would say social emotional support for women, femme-identifying individuals who are pregnant, and helps them through their pregnancy by ensuring that they create a plan together, like a birthing plan, right? So best case scenario, this is how I want my pregnancy to go. I don't want any drugs administered to me. I want to have a natural birth. There's extra planning if you want to include a midwife, which is like having an at-home birth. Anna has a doula. She had a great birthing experience, arguably. And so essentially what got me onto that path, I was raised by women. And a lot of the career path and choices society would say are things that women do. I don't believe in that. I think it's like these are just arbitrary terms. There are things that people do. And because I'm a caring individual, I'm hyper empathetic to the individuals and the communities I work in, which tend to be women and children. And I was addressing a lot of needs. I spent 5 years in Liberty City doing work, social emotional work with pre-K through high schoolers. And then there was, just last year, there was like a missing link. I was like, well, I can help children from 3 years and up, but 3 years and down and through the birthing process is not something I'm very familiar with. And so there was an opportunity for to go to DC and do a doula training. I took advantage of it, and I really fell in love with it because it kind of created. There's the school to prison pipeline. The way that my mind works is if we want to combat that, we create a cradle to career, cradle to college pipeline, right? So not everyone does have to go to college, but there are career paths that you can go into. And so being able to have experience being a doula allows me to solve a systematic issue and have a better understanding of the ways, like the colonial ways that birthing can happen, right? Because birthing can be a very colonial, very traumatic experience for a lot of women because it's doctoring is a male-oriented field, and a Western medicine doesn't really cater to empathizing with the individual that's giving birth. And that's a problem, right? And infant mortality rates in our communities amongst Indigenous women, amongst Black women, they're not things that we talk about, but they're some of the highest, right? And so if I want to hold myself accountable and help solve a systematic issue, then I need to have an understanding from inception all the way through all the way through, and that's what got me into doula work. I'm helping the second person. She's due in October, Scorpio. So super excited, and it's just been a really good process because most women don't expect to see a male presenting. I use they them pronouns, but most women don't expect to see a male presenting individual in this field, and it's like, why not? We need to be doing this. Like, it's my obligation, especially because I cannot give birth. I need to add that much more support. I think it helps make me a better person.
Nice.
Thank you also for sharing your pronouns. That's important to know as well.
No problem.
Any more questions, Rachel?
I don't have any more questions for you guys. Personally.
Yeah.
What about,
Sorry.
does anybody else have any questions?
I do have one more quick question. What advice would you give to anyone, it could be teens, adults, when they're reciting their poetry? Because I've noticed that I've tried to recite in the past, but I'll go blank on stage. Even if I have a paper, I think I just forget my lines. So how do you prepare? And what are some tips?
With paper?
Just hold the paper. I know, I would go blank.
Words disappear off your paper.
I would get really nervous.
Practice like a million times.
Like, because I recited like a really intense poem, and it was about a death in my family. So like, even though I had the paper, I just kind of like went blank. And I got really nervous. Maybe that's just me.
I would say definitely in that case, just like breathe for sure.
Yeah.
When you feel the jitters coming on, just like center yourself and it's just you and the words. You know, just you and the words. Yeah, I would say focus on the intention, and I think if you practice does help for me. But also knowing that there's certain things that I need to hit or certain things that I need to emphasize, highlighting, you know, the paper or what have you. But yeah, breathe for sure. Take your time if you have to. That's, you know, yeah.
Yeah. I think you get on stage, you get nervous, you just want to go through it. And highlighting does make things stand out, because if you're in like a dark room, it's like, and you have like a little bit of stage light, you kind of can't see it, but that's good.
Practice in front of a mirror as well, or practice in front of one person, and like every time you mess up, just start from the beginning. And then a really close friend, who's a great poet, Black Wildflower, the way that she memorizes poems is she works on the poem throughout the day, and then before she goes to sleep, she like pre-records herself doing the poem, listens to it 3 times, and then goes to sleep.
That's a good tip. That's a really good tip. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Another tip that a poet friend of mine also mentioned to me is just, you know, identifying where exactly those nerves come from. And, you know, it's your ego that's where it comes from. You know, your ego has feelings in it. It doesn't want to be embarrassed. It doesn't want to look bad, you know?
Be perfect.
So just identifying that it's your ego and just kind of like being gracious towards it, you know, towards the worries that you're feeling, just speaking in a kind voice towards whatever, you know, is perturbing you, whatever worries you have, you know, it could help you out as well.
That's perfect. Thank you. That's good tips. Do you want to jump into the activity, Rachel?
Oh yeah, we have an activity. So,
So they have an activity.
Question: Are there any youth in the participating?
Not
but they
today.
will be watching.
But they will be watching the YouTube channel. So maybe like when we get back to the site in person, we can always play the video for them and show them the activity as we're doing it, as an example.
Okay. Not a problem at all.
Sounds good.
So we're going to be focusing around like collective imagination and radical dreaming. Vanny, would you like to talk about the ICN revolution, or Anna, Samantha?
You want to go ahead, Vanny, or?
I mean, we could both jump in, but
Okay.
so coming up, I think it's this weekend, correct?
The 18th.
Haitian Flag Day,
Haitian Flag Day, yep.
if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
So I'm Dominican, so we come from the same island. We're practically the same people. So not only in our island, but also in the entire world, Haiti is just an example of what radical dreaming can do, what the power of dreaming can wrought. Haiti liberating themselves and becoming the first Black independent republic in the Western Hemisphere. Not only did it spark their collective self-governing and just collective power, but it did through the entire Caribbean and the Americas. Just a dream that they had as enslaved people to one day taste freedom and be able to buck the colonizers off their backs. It just sparked a global a global revolution that we're still going through to this day. We're still feeling the effects of it to this day. So we look at our brothers in Haiti, our brothers and sisters in Haiti, and it's just a perfect example of what dreaming could possibly do, what it can accomplish. But of course, with dreaming comes action, and as organizers, that's something that we strongly emphasize. We dream, we try our best to learn, and then we try our best to put action to our dreams. So yeah, that's the basis of our prompt. And if one of you would like to say what the prompt is.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be dreaming together, which means that we're going to be creating a collective poem. Each of you is going to be writing a line for this poem. But first, I want you all to just close your eyes and think about just your wildest dream. What does it taste like? What does it look like? What kinds of colors are flashing before your eyes? What do you smell as you're walking through? And as you're ruminating on that, we want to remind you a little bit of some of the figurative language that we want to be using as poets, because we are all poets right now. We mentioned them a little bit earlier, and you might remember them from school. Similes, so something that is like something else. A metaphor, you are gold, you are golden. Alliteration, when you use the same sounds or letters in the beginning of two words, so a curious cat, for example. Hyperbole, so just great exaggeration or personification, giving human-like qualities to something that is not human. So with that in mind, we open our eyes, and who wants to drop the first line? You all jump in whenever. If you guys need a couple minutes to think about your lines, go ahead, and then in a few minutes we can put them all together and see what we come up with.
Can you say the prompt one more time?
Oh yeah, what is the prompt?
So the prompt being, let's dream together.
Okay.
Let's dream together. So your dream world, create. How would it taste like? What would it be like? Describe, maybe, or give examples.
Field of yellow daffodils.
My
head.
Okay.
With my head towards the sky.
Okay, I like that.
But I need some rain in there. I love rain.
Are you writing these down, Jo?
Let me write mine.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
Could you write it? So if you all can, type it into the chat, and then that way we'll start to put it together.
Okay.
Perfect.
Oh, I don't know. I sent that. Sorry, RB. That's supposed to go to everyone.
I love that line, Chantel. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there an update to waiting music? So we should be listening to like Beyonce waiting music.
Okay.
Hey. I like what I'm seeing.
Did not mean to send it yet. Was not done. But
All right, yeah, we got about 1 more minute, so start wrapping up your dreams. At least this line that we're contributing to this collective. Anna, it's not fair, you're so good.
We did. Ended up.
This is dope. Indeed. All right.
Vanny, did you post yours?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna read these, like I'm gonna mesh these all into one. And then you all tell me what you think. So based on what's been shared, our collective dream is running through a field of daffodils, my head parallel to the sky, the rain tiptoes off my skin, freedom. Everyone is rushing to speaking and listening, moving into one and every opposing direction for one and every purpose, like the blood in a body that is coming to life. My dream, anti-gentrification of my home in New York City, my uptown, Mr. Softy sounds, children playing, energy in the streets, beautiful brownstones, a generational safe haven. We won't be in fear of being pushed out. It has been our home since the 20s. Looks like machete finding rest in the shade after roaming and dancing to drums, bringing smiles and safety to the islands. Freedom is a fevered dream. Wrinkled skin glazed by the sun, feels of a full, healthy life, exploring what could be in every direction. We can, we shall, we did. Black and brown generational curses and trauma broken. We are one with earth and sky and winds. I am the taste of freedom.
Wow, we wrote a great poem.
Are we poets or what? Look at that. Y'all are amazing.
That's fun.
Nice.
So the importance of this, right? Everyone contributing is that, like everyone contributing a line is that we view our poetry as a collective action, like call to action. And this collective dreaming is something that we can put action behind and make reality. And, you know, in Voices Poetry for the People, this is so important. And we also think it's important, especially for youth, to be able to do this collective work, because we get to where we want to get together. It's not something that happens individually. And society talks about, oh, if I make it, I'm gonna do this and that. In making it, just one person, you're taking advantage and exploiting many people. And that's not acceptable. And so we have to work together. We have to be in constant communication, and our dreams actually build off of one another.
Well said. That's beautiful. Thank you for that exercise. That was so fun.
It was.
We definitely have to share that with our teams.
I love how when we actually ended up reading it, it sounded like together in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It did.
And the shift
Absolutely.
like, made it more energetic in a way. That was cool. I wish there were teens here so much.
We can always do it again.
Yeah, for sure.
We would love to have you guys in the space.
Yeah.
To work with the teens directly, and I think it would be really powerful once we get back, especially after all the you know, introspective time that teens have had. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for all the work and effort you guys did to coordinate yourselves together to come out with us. We really appreciate it a lot. And yeah, that was awesome.
Not a problem. So we actually have, so when the youth see this, or when we're able to do this with them, so the first line that everybody wrote is, well, the line that everybody wrote is the first line of your next poem. So we want you all to sit with the lines that you wrote and craft a whole poem around it. And you all can feel free to reach out to us through our Instagram at Poetry for the People MIA. And if you want to work through your piece, just message us, and we'll start getting a back and forth and drafting until we come up to a piece that you all feel comfortable with saying is a piece that you worked on, but it started as a collective vision and collective radical dreaming.
Yeah, thank you all for having us. And yeah, I hope you really take this to the next level with your lines. And for any teens watching, yeah, feel free to reach out and we'll work it through.
Yeah, we challenge you teens.
And if you all have free time tonight, Aja Monet, who's one of the co-founders of Poetry for the People, she's going to be hosting a poetry online reading for Nakba in honor of Nakba, and it's on Facebook. Just look up Aja Monet, and you'll be able to live stream.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's always great. Honestly, the pieces read are always very impactful, And tonight, in honor of Nakba, there's going to be a couple of Palestinian poets reading. So it's going to be a treat for sure.
Yeah, very powerful.
Definitely will check it out. It's not like we're going anywhere, quarantining. Thank you so much. Okay.
No, thank you. It was great creating with you guys.
Yes.
Likewise.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you.
Take care, yeah.
Sign us out, Rachel. Everybody wave.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, next Monday, tune into our game show podcast at 4 p.m. So stay tuned to our social media at YOUmedia Miami.
Yeah.
Cool.